Let's talk about the monkey and the rabbit. And now, of course, I don't condone any animal experimentation, but there is some things to learn based on what's been done in the past in regards to heart disease. We think about monkeys out in nature. They're eating their bananas, rabbits are eating their carrots, they're all physically active, eating their plant-based diet, which their body was designed for. They're not smoking cigarettes out in nature. At least I haven't seen a smoking rabbit or monkey anywhere, right? And guess what? In nature, their arteries are completely clean. They don't develop any atherosclerosis. They don't have heart attacks. They don't have strokes. That's not a natural thing for them, right? But if you take these animals and bring them into a laboratory and feed them diets high in cholesterol and saturated fat, within about 6 months, guess what happens? You clog the animals up. The arteries get blocked with cholesterol plaque, and they do their experiments that they want to do to see what they can do to stabilize it or trigger a heart attack or whatever. It's horrible. Again, I don't condone that. But we know that this is the model that's been developed to study heart disease, where you take an animal that's a natural herbivore, feed it an animal-based diet, high in cholesterol and saturated fat, and watch the plaque build up rapidly. Here's what's also super important for us to realize, that if you take these animals that were artificially clogged with the diet high in cholesterol and saturated fat, and you put them back out in nature, you give them back their bananas and carrots, let them stay physically active, guess what happens? Their natural healing mechanisms kick in, the plaque reverses itself, and it's just absolutely amazing. And so this is such a simple thing. And the simple core concept of lifestyle medicine is that the default state of the human body is to be healthy, right? The body doesn't want to clog its arteries. It doesn't want high blood pressure, high cholesterol, doesn't want type 2 diabetes. It doesn't want to become obese. It only does so if we actively do something that harms our body. And it's crazy to think that it's that simple, but it is. Just stop harming yourself and it will improve. And so the analogy I use is if you cut your hand with a knife and you do nothing, you see the blood stop, the bleeding stop, the scab form, and the scar develops over 3 or 4 weeks. But if you keep on cutting your hand in that same spot every single day for decades and decades and decades, then it never heals. You keep injuring it. Well, our arteries on the inside are really no different than our skin on the outside. And we continuously injure our arteries through the food we eat and other things like tobacco or secondhand smoke. So it's just a basic concept. It's so important and so powerful. Now, the whole little crash course on nutrition, we're going to go through here. And again, many of you may know this, but this is, I think, the best way to explain it in order to get your message across to people. I say, hey, listen, let's simplify things. Whatever you call the diet you want to follow, let's just think about what is in your diet in these 3 groups. The first group is processed foods. And what does processed foods consist of? Ingredient-wise, it's anything that has sugar, white flour, or added fats, not just olive oil, but added fats, any type of shortening, any other types of oils that are in there. So sugar, white flour, and added fats, that's processed foods. That's the first category. Second category, animal-based foods. Of course, meat, eggs, dairy products, seafood. That's where cholesterol and saturated fat comes from, which we'll show in just a moment. The third category is whole, unprocessed, plant-based foods. So really, what we need to do with a healthy diet is eliminate those processed foods. They just need to be gone, not reduce them, not moderation, right? Just like, again, you shouldn't do cocaine and heroin in moderation. Processed foods should be out. And it's amazing to know, and this actually blew my mind away when I first learned this a few years ago after watching Forks Over Knives and reading a lot of nutrition. We don't need the animal-based foods. I couldn't believe it, but we don't need the animal-based foods. We need to focus on whole, unprocessed, plant-based foods, a whole food, plant-based diet, which is what everybody here advocates strongly. And so, what I always think about when I used to look at my refrigerator and it was all full of these dead animals and their secretions and all this stuff, it looks kind of gory now when you really think about it. When I've given up these foods and I don't even see them as being foods anymore, it just doesn't look good. And then when you think about what the fridge looks like now, beautiful, colorful, amazing. This is why we see in colors so that we can be attracted to these foods. It's mind-blowing that it isn't just such an obvious thing to begin with, right? And man, the food is just so amazing with over 200,000 edible plant species. I really just break it down to the simple fact that we need to focus on these fruits and vegetables, beans and legumes, lentils, whole grains. And there's so many different types of whole grains. There's dozens of different types of whole grains, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices. And when people look at this, they kind of go, wow, can you really make good, healthy, tasty food with this? Yeah, well, yeah, you can make such phenomenal food. Now, that's not really my expertise. I was on a panel yesterday with Chef AJ, who just can make this taste so phenomenal in so many different ways. Check out her site, pbnm.org, has a resource section with tons of recipes and other things that can help you figure out how to take this and make it into just phenomenal food that'll sustain you and help you get your natural healing mechanisms kicked in to reverse your diseases. So I do emphasize the one thing, though. We need to know what is a whole food. And when I used to work out in the Chicago area, I would always shake my head. I would drive by this donut store, and they would say, they had a sign out there that said, eat whole foods, HOLE. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Not donut holes, right? Ridiculous that like society mocks this whole concept of trying to eat healthy, but that's the way it is. And of course, there's a line out the door to buy the donut holes, right? We're talking about a food is a whole food if no harmful component is added to it, like you're not adding sugar, you're not adding oils, things like that, and no healthful component is removed. You're not removing the fiber, you're not removing any of the good nutrients. So you want it to be unprocessed or minimally processed as much as you can. Of course, like whole wheat pasta is processed a little bit, and those types of foods are okay to do as long as they try to like not do massive quantities all the time. And I always emphasize the difference between vegan and whole food plant-based. Sometimes I say whole food vegan. These things, I have patients all the time. If I say just plant-based, they might be 70% plant-based and still eat meat, eggs, and dairy. So I don't use the word plant-based. I either say 100% plant-based or whole food vegan. But when people think of vegan and they see the vegan label, they think of these foods, Beyond Meats and cereals and things like that, the tofurkey, all these processed foods, heavy in oil, heavy in salt, and a lot of sugar added to these things. Right? That's not what we're focusing on. We're focusing on whole food, plant-based, whole food vegan, and you can make the food spectacular. Burgers, pastas, everything, pizzas, you name it, it's phenomenal.